Hey, this is Jason Creel. You're watching The Lawn Care Life. Today I want to talk to you about fertilizer, in particular how to fertilize a Bermuda lawn. Now, I'm not going to actually show you how to push a spreader or that sort of thing, but we're going to talk about the fertilizer that I use and how to understand how much fertilizer you should be applying to your lawn. Stay tuned. You know, in the lawn care business, and homeowners alike want their grass green as much as possible, typically. So for us in the South, we have warm season grasses that go dormant in the winter, and when it gets springtime, a lot of times people want you to start fertilizing. And you know, in particular, when it gets April and May and the weather starts getting warm here in Alabama, we want to get the fertilizer down and get that grass green. So I'm talking about a Bermuda lawn, and I want to show you the fertilizer I'm using. Let's go ahead and start with that. So I buy my fertilizer from a company called Harold's. Now they have a fertilizer plant and they cover a lot of the area. A lot of the local lawn care companies use Harold's. This particular blend is a 3806 blend. Now in this video we're going to focus primarily on that first number, being the nitrogen content of this bag of fertilizer. 38 meaning that it is 38% nitrogen in this 50-pound bag. So if you want it for a visual here, you got a lot of green pellets and some white pellets mixed in. I'm spreading it here with my Ground Logic right on spreader. All right, so 3806. So let's talk about fertilizing your Bermuda lawn. What happens to me sometimes in the lawn care business is it'll get, March, April, and people want their grass green. The problem is sometimes it's still going down in the 30s at night, and just to be honest with you, the Bermuda is not going to be green at that time. Well, when the weather starts warming up, then that's when we start fertilizing. Okay, so let's talk specifically about a Bermuda lawn. How much fertilizer should you put on your Bermuda lawn? Well, for me, I'm trying to put out around 2.2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, okay? Let's say it again, 2.2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Now that's in May. As I get later, let's say I don't get around to somebody's yard until late June, then that number's gonna drop, because I don't need the fertilizer to last as long. So it may be, around 2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Well, what does that mean? So we've already established that this bag of fertilizer has 38% nitrogen. Now, I'm going to share with you the simple way that it was taught to me on how to understand how much fertilizer to put on your lawn based on the recommended rate for your grass type. Now, you can use this for other grass types other than Bermuda, but this fertilizer, being a 38% nitrogen in a 50-pound bag, all you have to do is cut that first number in half. So 38% nitrogen, 50-pound bag means it has 19 pounds of nitrogen in this bag. Now, let's say I've got a 10,000 square foot lawn, and to understand how big your lawn is, you're going to need to measure your lawn. But let's say I've got a 10,000 square foot lawn and I use 1 bag of fertilizer for my lawn. So how much fertilizer did I just put out if I'm using a 3806? Well, if 1 bag covered 10,000 square feet and there's 19 pounds in that bag, then that means I'm putting out 1.9 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Okay, so if I was wanting to put out 2.2 pounds per 1,000 square feet, which is what I'm doing, then that bag is only going to cover more like, 8,500 square feet, something like that, without doing the math. It doesn't take that much research to figure out how much nitrogen to put on your particular grass type. So if you had a different grass type, let's say I was using centipede grass and I was just wanting to put out a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Well, I could either use this same fertilizer here that's a 36% nitrogen and use half as much, or I could use a different blend. So I use, for my centipede lawns, I've got a 1819 blend, and so it's half as much nitrogen in that bag. So I can still put out the same amount of fertilizer as I would on my Bermuda yard, the same rate, because the bag actually only has half as much nitrogen. So a lot of times people think, I think sometimes homeowners don't understand what they're doing necessarily. If you just go out and buy a bag of triple 13, you start throwing it on your yard, it's 13% nitrogen. So you see what I'm using, 38% nitrogen, almost 3 times as much nitrogen. So if you want to equal the amount of nitrogen using a triple 13 on your Bermuda yard, you're going to have to use 3 times as much to get what is in the bag of fertilizer that I'm using. All right, let's take a look at the fertilizer here. Okay, so you can see there's a lot more green pellets than white pellets. The green pellets are actually a polymer coated. This is a polyon technology that Harold's uses in their fertilizer. So it's a polymer coated fertilizer. And this particular blend that I've got, as you can see, has a lot of the polymer coated fertilizer, which is the green pellets. The white ones are more of a quick release fertilizer. So you got the slow release green and the quick release white. Well, this particular blend is supposed to last roughly 16 weeks. So, you know, almost 4 months from the time I put it out to feed the lawn at a rate at which the grass can actually take it in. You know, that's sometimes the problem with a quick release fertilizer, is it may be putting out a lot of nitrogen, but the grass can't always use the nitrogen at the rate that it is available. So where this is supposed to be more feeding the grass at a rate that it can take in the nitrogen. So that's what's great about this fertilizer. I can put it out in May and literally it keeps the grass green throughout the growing season. Now, again, talking specifically about a Bermuda lawn, let's say you want it to be really green. Well, you can put, you know, more than 2.2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Let's say you want to put 2.5 and you want to crank it up and have it really growing. Or let's say that you're not using a 16-week slow release fertilizer. Let's say that you have an 8-week fertilizer. What you can do is you can say, well, I want to put out 2.2 pounds of nitrogen for the year. So if you've got an 8-week fertilizer, you can put out 1.1 pounds of nitrogen in May, come back in July, put out another 1.1 pounds of nitrogen. Again, you just do that same math, okay? So whatever blend you have, like I said, this being a 3806, cut that first number in half, 19, okay, on the 3806, that's how many pounds of nitrogen is in the bag. Then figure out how big your yard is, what kind of rate. You can use a spreader calculator if you just want to Google fertilizer spreader calculator. A lot of times it'll show you some recommended settings. You know, it'll say like, okay, if you got a Let's Go spreader or a Scott spreader or a Spiker spreader or whatever, you know, for this rate or this type of fertilizer, put it on this setting. But again, what you want to do is understand how big your yard is, and you know, you're understanding, hey, if I'm trying to put out 2.2 on this yard, on an 8,000 square foot yard, if I used the whole bag and was only halfway done with the yard, then I'm putting out way more than 2.2 pounds per 1,000. So you want to adjust your setting on your spreader. Same time, if you had an 8,000 square foot yard and you spread it and you only used a half a bag on the whole yard, then you didn't put nearly to 2.2 pounds per 1,000 square feet. So, you know, just understand what you're trying to accomplish. Understand how long is this fertilizer going to keep it green. The other thing, again, it's here in the south, I mean, the weather needs to be warm. But one of the great things, and this was explained to me by a golf course superintendent, he said what they do, if you have, because there's fertilizer blends that have more slow release in it than what I have, you know, and there's other polymer coated fertilizers out there. He said, all right, now managing a golf course, he said what we can do at the golf course on a Bermuda fairways, we can actually put our polymer coated fertilizer out, whether it's polyon or some other kind, in like February when it's still cold, the grass is still dormant. Now why? Because that polymer coating is not going to start breaking down as much until the weather gets hot. So it basically just sits there until the weather starts warming up, and then it starts breaking down, feeding the grass, it turns green. Now why would you do that? Why would you do it in February instead of, you know, just waiting until May? Well, as a golf course superintendent, he just said, you know, we got a lot more time on our hands in February than we do in May. You know, May, the grass needs cut and other things. So if we can get that out of the way in February, that's one less thing we have to do in May. So that made a lot of sense to me, understanding the polymer coating, feeding the grass at a rate at which it can actually use the nitrogen. You know, it's that whole drinking out of a fire hose illustration. You know, if you put the quick release fertilizer on there, sure, you're going to get an initial green up, but is it going to feed your lawn, you know, for the next weeks or months even? So anyway, I hope this has been helpful to you. I'd like to hear from you in the comments. Again, understand what blends you're using, what rate you're trying to apply it out, and then do a little bit of math to understand how much to put on your particular yard. You can use a push spreader, you can use a chest mounted spreader, you know, there's different things out there, or you can use a ride-on spreader, you know, like I got. All of them work, trying to make an even blend. You don't want to, I joke sometimes about in the South, we stripe our lawns. Unfortunately, the striping we do is not like the striping that people do with cool season turf. Sometimes the striping we do is because somebody did an uneven application of their fertilizer and it left dark strips and light strip, dark strip, light strip, and that is not the kind of striping we're going for. So, hope this is helpful. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. Love to hear from you guys, and check out these suggested videos. Thanks a lot.